Ladies and gents, welcome back to the JP on Comms YouTube channel for another pre-season focused video. In this one we're going to be talking about Maidstone's last two games and many of the concerns raised by Maidstone United fans over the recent weeks in pre-season. Now, of course, if you are a regular watcher of the channel, you would have seen in my Chatham Town video that I wouldn't have been able to make it to Leatherhead, and of course we did lose that game. Bad omen potentially, but of course we do see some brighter prospects from that game as well. Levi Manchi getting on the score sheet, his first goal for Maidstone United, albeit a matter of inches from the goal line. But you know, you've got to be there to score them, and he missed one in a somewhat similar position against Chatham prior to that. So, you know, he's starting to get into his stride a little bit more. Perhaps we'll see a few more link-ups when he starts playing with a few more of the first-team regulars. Of course, that Leatherhead team was a little bit disjointed at times, but really good work from Solwangel Smith and Devontae Arancibia to get that ball in to the middle for Manchi to tuck home quite simply. Now, for me, that's the sort of thing we need to be seeing in pre-season. We need to start seeing those connections form, you know, those relationships build, that sort of thing. It's really important to try and establish those going into, you know, the competitive season. And not long now, only I think it's 16 days, something like that, until we end up playing our first game against Slough in the National League South. And Slough are no slouches. They are a good team. You know, our bogey team from last time we were in the South, despite winning the league, they beat us twice. So we do need to be careful. You know, they're a team with decent players and they know what they're doing. They do know what they're doing. So we need to start building those relationships up a little bit more, in my opinion, and that was a good sign to take from Leatherhead. Aside from that, there wasn't too much to write home about. Devontae Arancibia was apparently a bit of a game changer for us, had a really good impact in the middle of the park, playing in that one, and unfortunately things did not get too much better after that. So it seems, you know, we made a few mistakes, a few bits of lapse defending, which allowed Leatherhead to get a few silly chances, which is what we saw a lot of last season. You know, Gavin Hoyt with a clearance towards the edge of the box for one of their goals, and then there's just some static defending from the players around the edge, and that's the sort of thing which last season really did cost us, and that's the sort of stuff you want to get ironed out quickly. And if that stuff doesn't change by the time the competitive season comes around, then Maidstone could very well see what we saw a lot of times last season in terms of letting easy chances go amiss. Now, going on to the Bromley game, of course, Tuesday night, a couple of days ago now, has given me some time to think about it. I did go to this one, and I was very impressed by what I saw throughout large portions of the game. We looked very competitive against a Bromley side who, of course, are, you know, a top third team really in the National League, so a league above. Absolutely wiped the floor with us last season when we played them their ground last time round. So I think it was a much more competitive game. Obviously, it's pre-season, but Bromley just come off the back of a 3-3 draw against Fulham. We just come off the back of a 2-1 loss against Leatherhead. Obviously, they're going to have a much higher standard of quality, even in amongst their squad players. You know, there's going to be players in there that I'm sure George Elokobi and the like would have looked at some point and maybe even considered bringing them into our team. But they are a good side. They didn't have their first starting team out, but they had some really good players. You know, Adam Marriott featured, and we saw how easily he picked us apart last time round. So yeah, I think we did look quite competitive. I was quite happy with a number of the performances from the boys. Devontae Arancibia again, I thought looked really good, but we just didn't get him on the ball enough, and that for me was a big loss in that game. I think we focused too much centrally, and then by the time we moved Devontae central, we were almost out of the game anyway. So yeah, we did get a good goal though. Really good goal, great ball from Lamar Reynolds through to the trialist, number 16, who had a very good finish through the legs of the goalkeeper. Lamar Reynolds also scored a goal of his own, but just offside in the build-up, which was unfortunate for him. Could have got a goal and assist to his name, but I thought he had a pretty decent game. My main concern with Lamar is just his touch. You know, he's so quick to get off the mark that unfortunately I think he knocks the ball too far ahead of himself, and he just loses that control a little bit too easily, where that allows opposition players to come in and sweep the ball away. So I think he can be a really good player for us. I've seen, you know, if you watch my All You Need to Know video, then you would know that I've watched back clips of Lamar from previous seasons, and he has got the ability for close control dribbling. So yeah, I think he's just kind of working himself into games at the moment. I thought we saw some really good performances from the likes of Reece Greenwich. I thought Bivesh looked okay as well. Sam Corn was all over the place in a good way. Really covered a lot of ground against Bromley, and I thought that was good too. Really nice to see him back in the side as well. I thought that Kai Mackenzie-Lyle, won't hesitate to drop that name as George has done it himself. In goal, Charlie's goalkeeper was a bit of a rotational player at Welling last season. 16 appearances I believe he had in the net for them. I thought he looked really good in terms of his shot stopping. He doesn't give me loads of confidence in kind of set pieces. Doesn't look too confident coming out and trying to claim a ball, or we often see him parry a ball down, so he'll kind of slap it towards the floor, and that caused all sorts of problems at times against Bromley. But in terms of shot stopping, there were some saves that he made which I was really, really impressed by. I think it'll take some time. I think it's a confidence thing, most likely. Obviously, at this moment in time, it's looking like he's the only shot we've got at a first-team goalkeeper next season, because unless we're going to play Harley Earl there, which, based off pre-season, I wouldn't necessarily be too against, but it's a lot of pressure to put on a young lad. Kai Mackenzie-Lyle is the only other person we've seen in and around the squad in the last few weeks who could potentially be that guy for us next season. So, yeah, there's going to be a lot of pressure on him. It's going to be a confidence thing, I'm sure. But he looked bright as well. And there was a couple other players within the team, a couple of the trialists who came on in the second half, which I thought looked quite good. The number 7 and a player who didn't have a number playing out on the right wing looked really impressive, I thought. But yeah, aside from that, that's those two games kind of covered very briefly there. Not too much to write home about, but some promising signs for sure. Now on to a few more of the concerns. So this is where we're going to get a bit more into that creating conversation that we do on this channel. I really want to know your thoughts. Of course, it's going to be really important to discuss these sort of things, air these concerns out before the season starts, make your voice heard a little bit. It's really important to have that opinion and to kind of talk about it in a controlled manner. I'm not someone who likes to not criticise, but I'm not someone who likes to just go above the necessary level of criticism. I'm not someone who likes to F and blind and, this person out, that person, you know what I mean? So obviously people are going to have that opinion. You're more than entitled to it. That's just not something I do. If you do want to voice those concerns in the comment section below, then please do so. But for me, the main concerns I'm going to talk about in this video, if I can sort myself out, are a few different things really. A couple of things that have bothered me at points in this pre-season is squad size and squad depth. That's probably the primary concern for the majority of people, and you can link that into a lack of signings, which we'll get onto as well. But the squad size at the moment is not big. It really isn't big. We had 11 trialists within the matchday squad against Bromley. We had, I think, 7 in the matchday squad against Leatherhead, and I'm not best pleased with that. I want to have a few more players cemented within the squad already, knowing their future, having that commitment to the club already. And unfortunately for me, I think we're lacking numbers in key areas. The only out-and-out striker we've got at the club contracted for next season is Levi Amanchi. People have their questions over him. I don't yet. But you never know. He could turn out to be really good. He could turn out to not be really good. So, that's a risk we'll have to take. And unfortunately, in a 50-50 situation like that, when he's the only player you've got up front at the moment, that is something we do need to, have some concerns over. And again, I'm not trying to say let's be concerned about Manchi, but let's be concerned about the fact that he might pick up an injury, the fact he might hit a bad run of form. Who's going to come in and play there? Are we going to try and play Sol up front? That's something, again, we did see a little bit against Bromley. But, we want to have a more out-and-out renowned striker. And that's where players like the number 16 trialists come in. So, yeah, that's, for me, a big area we need to improve on. Depth in key areas. We're lacking a few quality forwards who could provide backup. We're lacking a goalkeeper, of course, who's contracted to the side. We're lacking in central defenders as well, I think. We've only got Reece Greenwich, Sam Bone and George Fowler, I believe, as contracted centre-backs for next season. Now, that for me is quite concerning. it does seem we're going to be playing a 2 at the back system, so it's not like we're going to need 5 or 6 players in that position, but we are going to need at least 4 in my opinion. And we've also seen Sam Bowen playing in midfield a little bit as well, so perhaps if he moves up, that's only going to leave us with a couple of people at the back, and we do need to just remain a little bit more focused on trying to improve in those areas, in my opinion. On to the actual signings themselves, a few concerns there. 4 games into pre-season now, and we're still yet to see Chi Ezenollim. For me, the brightest prospect we've brought in, someone who I think definitely has a better pedigree than perhaps some of the players we brought in, and a higher ceiling than some of the players we brought in. A lot of people were concerned that he was going to go to a much higher club than us, someone in the National League or even higher, and we managed to acquire him. Yeah, we haven't seen him at all, and he wasn't, to my knowledge, at the game training or anything like that versus Bromley. I don't know what it's in relation to. I don't know if there's something personal going on. I don't know if there's injury related things, fitness related things, so I have to keep an eye on that one. But we have only made 5 signings up to now, and I can't lie, I thought we would have made at least 7 or 8. We do need about 10 signings, I think, this window. I think another 5 would probably put us in a good spot for this upcoming season in terms of depth. A goalkeeper, maybe a centre-back and a right-back, or a centre-back and a left-back. Maybe someone who could play in both, like that trialist we've seen featuring a few games so far. Another midfielder at least, again, like that trialist we've seen a couple times at the Gallagher, and then at least 1 or 2 forwards as well. So we do need probably 5 or 6 more than what we've had so far. It does concern me about the speed of these signings that we're seeing coming in. It's been a good couple weeks since we've seen any incomings into the side, and that does have me a little bit concerned that, like I've mentioned in previous videos, that some of our priority signings maybe are getting lured away to other clubs. We've seen the likes of Taylor Maloney, who I highlighted in a video as someone we really should be interested in, and I'm sure Maidstone would have been looking at him too. Has gone to Farnborough. There's going to be other players from other teams who have no doubt that have moved on, which Maidstone may have been in for and we've missed out on. Michael Giassi, of course, gone to Gloucester, I do believe. So another player there which I highlighted as someone we could be taking a look at. You never know. So if I'm looking at these players who I think are good enough to come in and we've missed out on, Maidstone have probably done the same. Let's be honest. These things happen. You miss out on targets all the time. You can't always get your first choices in. That's just the nature of the game. But I do think that we might have been caught out a little bit. Obviously, a lot of talk about Ryan Sanford coming in that goalkeeper position. George mentioned the supporters evening that we were in talks with him still, but apparently he was trialling for Woking during the week or last weekend. So, yeah, another player there which perhaps we might have missed out on. So, Maidstone may be playing a little bit of catch-up. We may be in a sort of situation now where we're looking around and thinking, we're missing out on key players here that we were expecting to bring in, and now we're trying to make up for it by finding players who are willing to play for us and of a significant quality, because there's going to be plenty of players out there who want to play for Maidstone. George highlighted this, the supporters evening. Maidstone is a club where a lot of players are going to be looking at as a team which they think I could come in and make a difference. It's a very reputable side, have a lot of eyes on them, big supporter base. A lot of teams above Maidstone United do look at Maidstone United as well in terms of trying to poach and lure players away. Nathan Jeche, of course, for example, and QPR. But we do need to try and make sure we're getting in that quality. And I think that's what's taken things so long. I don't think there's any lack of players who are willing to try and come in at Maidstone and prove themselves, but I don't think they're of the quality that we're looking for. I don't think they're meeting the standard that we want to sign, and unfortunately I think some of the trialists fall into that category as well. A lot of people haven't been interested in those. That's another area of concern, that trialists do not look necessarily of the quality that we may want to be bringing in. I think against Bromley, pretty much all of the trialists who featured looked pretty good, so that's a positive. We saw a couple of new faces there as well. That winger that I mentioned, the striker, of course, but we also saw a few more regular trialists, such as the right back, the centre back, and one of the midfielders as well. So I think we're starting to kind of find out who the better trialists are. There's trialists from other games who, didn't look too bright at all. One of the strikers, I believe it was against Sheppey, really didn't impress for me, and we haven't seen him since. So I think the club are working on trying to iron out the quality of these players and who we really should be looking to bring in. Of course, there's going to be players who aren't trialling that we're still going to be talking to. Ryan Sanford, for one example there. But, if just because they're trialling doesn't mean that's all we're looking at. There will be players out there who have been released from National League teams, League 2 teams, who are trying to not limit their options and don't want to be caught on trial for another team, if that makes sense. They don't, want to be talking to Torquay or Yeovil and then comes out that they're trying for Maidstone, because that won't do them any favours, if you know what I mean. So there's going to be players out there taking that approach, and I'm sure Maidstone are talking to some quality players in that regard. But that is going to bring up pretty much all of my main concerns from the pre-season. Of course, as I've been saying in pre-season videos, George's unbeaten streak has come to an end, and George's beaten streak is now at 2. So hopefully we're going to see that change against Horsham at the weekend. Another one I'm not going to be able to make, which is a bit of a nightmare, but I'm really hoping I'll be able to make games like Folkestone. So hopefully we're going to see a little bit of an upturn in form from our recent games, and we're going to be able to go into this new National League South season a little bit more prepared than what it seems like we could be at this moment in time. So, like I say, do voice your concerns. If you have any, of course, down in the comment section below. Do subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and stay tuned. There is going to be a couple more videos hopefully coming out throughout this week as well. So, thank you also very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.